Welcome to the CEO Bros Podcast, After Hours, with Brian Baldoff, co-founded, grew, and sold VHT Studios. Brad Baldoff, CEO and co-founder of By Your Side Autism Therapy Services. Matt Crope, the consummate entertainer, jack of all trades, and serves as our host.
That comes through on the sound. Amber, does that come through my stomach is growling?
Again, some ASMR. Is that what we call that? Oh, so that's audio. Visually, I can't tell what that red is.
Is that a lobster?
Is that a lobster?
Yeah, and actually, I was just
Larry
talking
the
to
lobster.
I was talking to Amber.
It's Pinchy.
Pinchy the lobster.
Oh man, that's good. Oh, pass the butter.
Are you gonna eat that all by yourself?
Pinchy would have wanted it this way. My dear sweet Pinchy. Oh. No more pain where you are now, boy. Oh God, that's tasty.
He's just he's making himself laugh over here.
That's from the
I was talking to A-Rex on the side, and I was just telling her about how much I love lobster. Now, I would prefer to be at a nice, like, luxury seafood restaurant having, lobster and some kind of other seafood. And she's like, and I go, but I'd eat Red Lobster. This isn't the Red Lobster logo. And she's like, oh, Red Lobster. And I said, I love Red Lobster. And she says, oh, I just can't stand Red Lobster. Now, I don't know if this is going to go on either side of the advertiser pursuit tracker.
I think it's up the middle. Yeah.
I actually am a big fan of Red Lobster. So our good friends at Red Lobster, I toast you out there.
I think it goes in the positive because I haven't been to a Red Lobster, and you saying the story. Now I'm going, I should go to a Red Lobster.
Wait, you've never been?
I don't think so.
Oh,
Why would
God.
I have gone? No.
I love it. Love Red Lobster. And so just to answer your question.
I guess you can say that about anything.
I mean, I'm not a seafood eater, and I've been there.
I got up early this morning and I was hungry, and I just saw a shirt with a lobster on it.
You know what else you love in addition to Red Lobster? You love accountants, attorneys, and bankers. Oh my.
I don't like it.
Welcome to the CEO Bros. We are going to jump into accountants.
Yeah, what is it? It's like
attorneys,
lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. It's like CPAs, attorneys, and bankers. Oh my. And that's exactly the way I feel about all of you out there.
Well, let's rewind the clock a little bit because
my best friend's an attorney. Our nephew's going to be an attorney.
Yeah,
so
let's take that back. Hold on a second. I love attorneys.
I think we know where that goes.
Love the law firm Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. I do actually appreciate all those.
There are complexities.
Strategic partnerships with all those individuals, all those groups of people that have helped us through the years. But yes, there's a strong love-hate relationship.
Well, one thing they all have in common is that you need them from the very beginning. So let's rewind the clock a little bit, or do you? So let's get down to
we'll talk about how you evolve.
Yeah, but let's start with the basics of the business, right?
Let's get back to we talk about hey, let's say you're just getting started. Do you need an attorney to go start an LLC? Mm-hmm. I said one of the first things I did in starting companies was you get an LLC, a limited liability company, right? Because you're not doing things personally, you're doing things under a company name. And people, I think, get spooked when they hear that. They think legal. Do I need an attorney? And you don't. You could literally get an LLC online within 24, 48 hours. You can go to LegalZoom. There's other companies you can get it, but you can go right online. You fill out a few things that you should be able to answer on the spot. You don't have to do much digging or research to do it. You can put an LLC together for a few $100, and now boom, you're incorporated. And you didn't have to have an attorney. You didn't have to pay extremely high amounts of dollars to get incorporated. And a lot of people don't even know that. They hear LLC and they get scared by that, or, oh, that's going to be a lot of work. And it's not. It's very simple. Go to LegalZoom, get an LLC. By the way, LegalZoom will be on our advertiser pursuit tracker because of the plugs for them. Yeah. It's very simple. I mean, I've probably started 15, 16 LLCs doing the same way, 24, 48 hours. But you don't need an attorney to do that. So that's first and foremost. But you were mentioning kind of the lions, tigers, and bears, which we'll call CPAs, attorneys, and bankers. And I'm sure between Brian and I, we have a number of different stories, reasons we use. We work with these individuals. And for those people that are wanting to start a company, at a certain point in time, you should consider, do you have those people?
They're resources. I mean, they definitely can help you start, grow, sell a business. So you can't ignore them.
I kind of viewed it as we were joking earlier, Brian, a couple of days ago, we were talking about it. And I said, I see it as like the parent-child relationship in which
I like that, yes.
in which they are there.
I think that's how my attorneys would view my relationship. They're the parent, I'm the child.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because, a child gets frustrated with their parent. The parent is looking after the child so they don't hurt themselves. And that's what these individuals or partners are there for. Your CPA is there to help you. Your attorneys are there to help you. Your bankers are there to help you for different reasons. And you don't always want to talk to them. And some of the things they tell you will frustrate you.
Because they say no sometimes.
They say no. They say no a lot. Right. Or they say, like this will hurt you if you do this. And you don't want to hear that. But you also have to hear it. You have to hear it. You need to hear it. And so those relationships are extremely important.
Because that goes against maybe a vision you have. You have to alter your vision to what they're saying. Well, this is what you really can do.
Right. Yeah, because if we talk to each other, we're going to go, yeah, do it. Go ahead. Try it. What's the worst that could happen? You talk to your attorney or your banker or your accountant, they'll be like, well, the worst that could happen is you're going to go out of business and lose everything you have because it's illegal. Like, oh, okay, well, there's that.
That would be a little example. That would be a hurdle. Yes. Yeah.
I could figure my way around that.
I mean, picture like the little angel sitting on one shoulder and the little lobster. We'll have to come up with some logos for that, or
like a lobster,
like a lobster. No, not a lobster.
He likes
our good friends again at Red Lobster.
He likes.
We appreciate you guys.
On the good side.
No, but I mean, think of it like the angel sitting on one shoulder and the evil or the demon on the other side. Like, you could do this. You can do it. You don't have to follow that. You don't have to, do it this way or do it that way.
Screw the rules.
Yeah, screw the rules kind of thing. And it's a lot of times it's you want to do things fast. You want to do them easily. You want to do it painless, and you want to move 100 miles an hour. And these types of the groups, they'll say, okay, great. We want you to do that too, but keep this in mind. Mm-hmm. And it's frustrating. I think to the point you raised, Matt, is that you have a different timetable that how you want to move, and you realize to do it right, you need to hear out what they have to say.
In usually what I've learned is it's most valuable in the future. Because they'll be like, hey, I get it. This makes a lot of sense right now. This is critical. This is urgent right now. Just understand that 5 years from now, when you go to do this, or this decision is going to come back to haunt you. Because those are the kind of things you don't think of as an entrepreneur or as a startup. You're thinking today, tomorrow, this week. You're not thinking 3 years from now, 5 years. It'd be amazing if we're around
in 5 years. I'm really just thinking about 6 months.
I'll worry about that in 5 years.
Right.
And then eventually you get to that 5 years and you're like, oh, they were right. Like, we shouldn't have gone this direction, or we shouldn't have, signed this deal, or whatever it happened to be.
Yeah, like I'll give you an example. My daughter, who has started her own business, Shop Melzy, which sells logoed apparel, university goods on apparel items that she designed.
I feel like we should be talking to her about some CEO Bros apparel, but.
Yeah, we can work through that. Right. Let's see. Yeah. Jordan. She's, as her business continues to develop and grow, she is now getting introduced. So she didn't need day one. She starts her business. She forms an LLC. She starts designing some clothing. She starts selling some things online, but now she's quickly getting to a point where she's selling more, she's developing more, she's entering different markets. I'm introducing her to different people now. I said, hey, you need a CPA, as someone that's going to be doing your taxes, because you're not making just a few bucks. You're making more. You're making more money now, and you're gonna have to file taxes on all that. I mean, obviously, you do your own personal income tax return, but a CPA will tell you, obviously, besides doing the basics like tax preparation, will start to say, hey, you have to keep this in mind, or here's some loopholes or some things that can help to your benefit. These are the things that you need to consider. So I've introduced her to a CPA to start getting her to think about longer range. Because like you said, Brian, it's the long range. It's the things in the future that you got to start considering. You don't need it day one, but you start to need it as your business develops. And so from a CPA standpoint, pretty simple tax preparation, things that you should be accounting for in expenses, things that you should be accounting for as you do your books, as you do your financials, that person's going to need to help do it. And a lot of times people are just, I'm like, do a quick spreadsheet, or they're writing numbers on paper and they're not really keeping good track of it. You're going to find very quickly that could hurt you down the road if you don't have your financial organization together, like in how you keep your things organized. So.
Do CPAs at that stage of the game give advice on expenditure, or they're just keeping books?
Both. If you have a good one, if you have one that's engaged, again, it depends on how elaborate or complex your business is. But even a more evolved business now, like say by your side, we're getting some really good tax advice from our CPA on like, you guys should consider doing this. There's a point when
the price of success is taxes, and that's where CPAs to me provide the most value. Yeah. It's usually your second largest expense after employees.
Right.
It's taxes.
It's taxes, right.
People don't think of it as an expense. It's an expense, and it's a huge one. And that's, and we could talk about each of these. I mean, we can go alphabetically. Accountants, attorneys.
So CPAs is second. You want to go to the accounting?
I call them accountants. You call them CPAs.
But that is the first time we've said that, because we've talked a lot of expenses and such. So it's just worth repeating.
Where does the zoologist come in?
That'll be at the end.
Where does the cobbler come in? Where does the...
Did you say cobbler?
Yeah, I just thinking of expenses.
Need new shoes.
But so first time, so it's worth repeating, taxes are an expense.
Huge expense. Yeah. When you're successful. I know
the
first few years you might be losing money and you get a tax benefit, but yeah, because it's one of those things, well, I have to pay it. And so you don't give it a lot of consideration. But if you talk to a good CPA, they'll help you minimize that expense, which is kind of what you were asking Brad, like, well, do they help you with expenses? That's a big one that they help you with.
Yeah.
To figure out how to minimize.
And I want to reiterate, I clearly know taxes are expense, but you think people don't maybe underestimate, like they're maybe the second largest expense you have.
That and they underestimate their ability to have some control over that. Like, it just is what it is. The government, I just have to pay this tax. It's like, well, there's strategies to minimize taxes, defer taxes, to I don't want to say avoid taxes, but sure.
No, we're all trying to avoid taxes.
Good around within the law, yeah.
Yeah, but within the law, yes. There you go.
But like one of the discussions
that's where your attorney comes in too. Yeah.
Well, one of the discussions we just talked about was that Jordan is considering having multiple members of her LLC versus being a sole proprietor. Well, if she's a sole proprietor LLC, she has to file her taxes by a certain date. If she's a multi-member LLC, she files by the later date or the earlier date, March 15th, versus a sole proprietor LLC. She can actually file by April 15th, if I've got that correct. But there's two different dates for filing. There's the corporate filing date, and then there's the individual filing date. And so the CPA was asking her, as I was making the introduction, hey, when are you actually becoming the multi-member LLC? Because when you do that, you'll need to file earlier.
You need to get those K1s to your shareholders, because I can't tell you how many K1s I get in like July or August. And be like, okay.
K1s are what?
That's what an LLC gives to their members to file with your taxes, because everything kind of flows through. The losses and the gains flow through the individual members. So you have to, if I own a company,
Let's use the podcast as an example.
Okay, yeah, good example.
Let's just say for
that you
hypothetical,
owe a lot in taxes.
Yeah.
You haven't gotten your K1 yet.
Let's use. I'm not
wait a
committing.
minute, Matt's like, I've just become much more interested in this topic.
I'm not committing to these terms, but let's just say, for the sake of this conversation, that the four of us in this room were 25% shareholders in the LLC, and the LLC lost $10,000 at the end of the year. Okay. The LLC would present a K1 to you, a K1 to Amber, a K1 to Brian, and a K1 to me, saying 2,500 lost, 2,500 lost, 2,500 lost, 2,500 lost. That K1 would then apply to your personal tax return, and that $2,500 loss would apply to your personal return. So you, as an individual of an LLC, want your K1 to file your individual personal tax return. And that's why Brian was mentioning members of an LLC want their K1, they can file their personal tax return. And that's why businesses file their returns first, or in most cases, they get to file. K1s come out so that the K1s can be filed a month later on the due date of your taxes, April 15th.
So for those entrepreneurs out there who have never started a business, took your advice in the LLC, is K1 intuitive, or what do they have to do for the K1?
Well, if you're a multi-member LLC,
is that LegalZoom? Like, is that a tax form? Like, how do they?
From
generally, an accountant can do it, or whoever keeps your books. Could issue the K1s to your member.
But if someone's doing it by themselves, brand new entrepreneur, starting an LLC.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. Like, if I was running it and you guys were members, you'd never get your K1s because it's like, it's just not something I do. Yeah. And that's what I'm warning people about. So that's like, if you do a multi-member.
That's why you go to an accountant. That's why you go to an accountant. That's why you go to CPA, is that it costs more money. Yeah. You know, people don't want to spend that money, right? They don't want to, they want to do it themselves and save some bucks. But look, if you don't get the K1s out, right, and then they don't hit the people that should be getting them, and then let's happen to say that individual were to get audited for some reason, and why don't you have this gain or on your return from when you guys made money the year before? That's why it's just good to have an accountant, CPA on, you know, kind of in your group, in your team, to like look after it. Now you're spending money on it, money you don't want to spend, but eventually it makes a lot of sense for you early on to start talking to an accountant early on to say, am I doing this the right way? What do you need from me? What can I provide? You know, and those questions are all going to come up, you know.
And all three of these professions, and these are, you know, professional service providers that you have relationships with, fall under, I'd say, corporate governance, how to run the company from an administrative, legal, financial, tax side of things, which I'd say probably 95% of entrepreneurs don't think about, don't like to think about. Right. I'm thinking more about my product and my service and my customers and my marketing and my restaurant and my store. This stuff, it's necessary. It has to be done. But any time you spend on it is time you're not spending on growing your business, selling,
finding customers.
Customers, yeah, exactly.
Right? So it's something you have to do. Mm-hmm. It's a priority. Is it as high as a priority as finding customers like we talked earlier? Is it about developing your product or service? You know, maybe not, but it is a priority and it's something you have to do. You eventually have to allocate some time to it and you have to spend some money on it. And so we're just talking about some of these things that are out there that people kind of falls to the back seat. People forget about it, but yet it's something that you have to do. And that's one of your lions and tigers and bears group.
Yeah. And the parent analogy is good. It's like eat your vegetables, you know?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I've fought that for 58 years now and I'm still here, but
he used to just scrape the vegetables on the floor and then our big fat,
the dog wouldn't even eat them.
What kind of dog
like, Come
was
on,
that?
Dog.
That was a schnauzer. The schnauzer was it was literally like a vacuum cleaner.
Like a furry pig.
Yeah.
Even vegetables?
Everything, because we just scraped I should say this, but we scraped everything on the floor, and it was like, and this poor dog just became
just the vegetables.
Yeah, not everything. Yeah. I mean, sorry, mother. But that's one of your partners that you have to be you have to be cognizant of having someone to prepare your taxes. And a very simple return, yes, you could probably do it yourself. You can probably get the forms and do it online quickly. But as your business becomes more complicated, if you have multiple members, if you have to draft K1s, as you start taking more revenues, as you take more expenses in, it's good to start seeking the counsel of an accountant, because you'll find that there's something you may be missing. And it's not something you want to be burned down the road on because you didn't consider it. So,
yeah, I think the other thing you get from CPAs and accountants, I'll stick with that one for right now, is if you're ever going to need to share your financials with anyone else, it's important to have a kind of common sense of standards. And especially if you're going to get investors, if you're going to get a bank, because a lot of, I think, entrepreneurs just manage their business on a cash basis. It's like, what did I spend? What did I earn? And that's it. Once the business starts getting bigger, you consider things like depreciation and, can I depreciate this asset over 5 years and lower my taxes?
Start accruing for expenses.
Accruing expenses to keep your expenses and your revenues in the same periods. And those are all things that become more important down the road. And the sooner you start, the better. For instance, at VHT Studios, we knew it was important from the beginning because some of our angel investors had told us that. So we had a CPA that did, I don't remember what it was called. Like, there's 3 different things you can get done: a review, an audit, and something else. But we would get reviews done. And then when we took
quality
money,
of earnings, or
yeah, probably. And when we took money from a venture capital firm, they required an audit every year because they were backed by the SBIC. But a lot of bigger investors will require companies to get on, because I don't know what's going on in your day-to-day business, and I trust you and all, but trust but verify, So let someone else tell me that the books aren't being cooked, or you are actually accounting for things correctly, especially when you go to sell the company, because they're going to go through your finances with a fine-tooth comb, and if you haven't kept a neat house, it's just going to either delay or kill the deal. Because we acquired a lot of companies, small companies, entrepreneur founded. It would take months to go through their financials because they just kept them for themselves. They didn't have outside investors. They didn't have to share with anybody. So when we would look at them, it's like, well, wait a minute, where are these expenses? It's like, oh, I paid that out of my pocket or whatever. It's like, okay, that's important. Just so many things that, like we said earlier, come back to haunt you later if you don't put those practices in place in the beginning. And these are the people who can help you up front. Corporate governance, again, your accountants, your attorneys, your banks.
I think that mindset's important. You may worry that your company may not last a year, but you need to plan like it'll be around for 10.
Why not? Be optimistic and positive and approach it like we're gonna, because that was one of the things that I think impressed investors when we went out to talk to them. When we would show them our financials, they'd be like, okay, these guys are serious. This isn't just Brian doing this as a side hustle. Like, they have professionally presented financials, a balance sheet, a P&L, a cash flow statement.
Everything that a buyer or acquirer would expect to see is there. And so, simply put, I would think that once you get a business going, you've sought out and found an accountant or a CPA that you're comfortable working with. And again, you can find those online. You have people going to say, hey, who does your taxes?
I was going to say referrals are the best.
Who does your taxes? Who does your personal taxes? And then maybe you talk to that person who does your personal taxes. Can you do small businesses? Yes, I can. I can't do small business. Who would you recommend to do my taxes for a business that's growing? In most cases, accountants can take on small businesses. And so the vast majority of the people that are out there watching, the people that prepare your personal tax return could probably do your small business return. But if it starts getting bigger, certain tax accountants will say, this is starting to get outside our scope. We do personal tax returns and very small businesses, but now it's getting larger. It's more complex. But those are the types of things you can ask. Hey, are the way I'm keeping track of my financials today, whether I'm using QuickBooks, I'm using an Excel spreadsheet, I'm using some other financial program, is this appropriate? Do you have something I could be doing different than what I'm doing? No, you're doing it right. Great. confirm it. Just, make sure. And so that's how that partner helps, right? And it's good to have someone like that kind of in your wheelhouse that's, part of the team. It's not, person's not on your payroll, the person's not working for you, but it's one of your partners. It's on the governance side, like Brian said, it's one of those people that you want in your corner, giving you direction and counsel.
When you brought up an important point, which is change, I mean, we'll have whole episodes on just growing your business from this level to this level to this level, and change management, transformation, leadership. Don't assume that your accountant knows how to, when you go from that first $1 million in revenue to, $5 million in revenue, they know how to do that. They may not tell you. They may go, hey, this is great. I got a client that's growing. I'm going to try and learn some of this stuff. Where in reality, you might need to switch, especially if it's a unique business. Because like Brad said, I think most CPAs could handle pretty much any small business. But if there's a big difference between product companies and service companies and software companies and people who sell things overseas and stuff like that. At some point, you need your professional service partners to specialize or have expertise in your specific industry or your specific case. So just always keep that in mind, that as your business grows, a lot of times you have to change your partners.
I'll give a fantastic example of an accountant practice that if you're not at the right level within your business, what it could hurt or help you with. Our prior accounting firm that worked with us, tax preparation accounting firm, mainly personal, very small business. We're in the transformation of switching to a bigger company, moving to a larger accounting firm. The smaller accounting firm said, you guys shouldn't and don't need to pursue your employee retention credit with the government, which is the ERC funding.
Right.
They told us that we don't qualify. We shouldn't pursue it. It's a waste of our time. And they told us that on a couple occasions. And we decided to take that advice and we didn't pursue it. And then I pushed that we should pursue it through another firm that gave me advice that was a larger accounting tax preparation firm. They told us we should pursue it. And it wound up being several $1 million.
Isn't that crazy?
That the government paid in an employee retention credit, tax credit. They paid back to us for businesses that suffered through COVID. And the smaller practice just did not have exposure or experience to that sort of questioning. And this other firm did, which was bigger. So it just goes to show you the transformational nature of it. That could have cost our company millions of dollars.
And to be clear for those listen, that's not a credit you just automatically get. So this is a very specialized thing that this smaller company didn't have any, experience with. But it just goes to show you that the level of complexity, the level of questioning, the level of things that can happen. That's why you should have someone that you can count on, and then B, as you're growing, it's something you can ask your accountant, your tax preparer. Hey, is this something you're comfortable? Is this something that your firm specializes in, or are we getting too big? Typically, they'll tell you too. They'll say, this is getting outside our scope, or we're going to pass you on, or we're going to give you referrals. So that's just an example, though, where we would have lost several $1 million of government potentially issued or government issued money that we were rightfully entitled to, that the smaller firm did not have exposure experience. I have to ask, did you ever circle back with a smaller firm and say, yeah, guess what?
I didn't.
Took the cash.
No, that's kind of, I told you so. Told you so.
Yeah. Really, as a learning opportunity. I mean, you could say, look, just want to let you know.
Multiple times. So you guys don't qualify for that. And we said, actually, we did. So that's just an example.
Well, it reminds me, from a personal standpoint, kind of all the horror stories you hear about doctors. Like, your general practitioner can do certain things, but if you wind up getting brain cancer or some blood disease or something, you need a specialist. And hopefully your general practitioner recommends you. I mean, I had a horrible dental experience where I had to go to a specialist to fix something that a dentist did, and he's like, your dentist should have never done that. I'm like, Okay, it's too late now. But think about that in terms of business.
Why did your dentist remove an ingrown toenail?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I was thinking of colonoscopy, but I was like,
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why did your dentist do a colonoscopy? That should have been
a red flag.
should have been done at a different.
Why is your dentist asking you to fill urine cups?
But this is the same thing. You get even though these people are professional accountants and attorneys and bankers, if it's not their specialty, if they don't have experience in it, can cause just as much damage. So hopefully you find one of the biggest benefits to the professionals is that networking.
Yes.
They network with other professionals. They know other professionals. They know people upstream and downstream. That's the perfect person to talk to, is that they're not afraid to refer you out to someone else for something specific.
I would also say, just in closing on accountants, tax preparation.
Let's close the door on accountants.
No, I would say that it would just be fitting that we toast to our father who passed away recently.
He was an accountant.
Tax accountant, tax preparation. Our father did it for 40 plus years before he passed away. A little over 2 months ago, and so he did taxes on a personal basis for personal people's personal returns, and so we were inundated around.
Oh, you were one of his biggest clients.
I was one of his biggest clients, and I could do a whole
one
podcast.
Of his most challenging clients.
I could do a whole podcast on those stories alone, because those were hysterical.
To be clear, his dad was not the one who did not recommend him for the ERC. That's not. Don't put two and two together.
No,
That's not.
No, but toast to our father.
Man.
Toast to our father.
Yeah, our dad had to deal with all of Brad's different businesses on his personal tax return.
Yeah,
yeah, he got a kick out of all that. So, Dad, hopefully you're looking down from above and laughing at that, because that was hysterical time. Yes. But so I mean, as we move on, the second partner would be like your attorneys, right? So the attorneys are I know
I don't even know what you're gonna say, and I'm starting to laugh. I don't know why.
I don't
even know what you're saying.
I have a lot of close friends that are attorneys, as does Brian, and our nephew's becoming an attorney. Some of our closest friends are attorneys. I've been working with a couple law firms for the longest time.
It's a long ramp up to something that's coming.
Right. But
having said that,
God, are they expensive? You guys charge like there's no tomorrow. I mean, every minute of every hour of every.
Is that one of the biggest challenge? Keep track of what the hours they're billing.
Oh, God help you.
I got
good luck with that.
I got a bill once. We were working with a large firm, and I went to visit one of the attorneys for something, and like 2 months, 3 months later, because they said the bills, usually at the end of the year, like, oh, by the way, you owe us $150,000.
Don't let it get crawling up.
But I go through the details, and there was one on there for 15 minutes, and I'm like, I ran into that guy in the bathroom. Like, did I ask him a business question?
He handed me a paper towel, and he just billed me $200
for 15 minutes. I couldn't believe it, or you go to a social event with 3 of them, and like you get triple billed. But these are just, again.
I mean, we're okay. Listen, we can have. I could bring up a whole host of different stories that are funny related to attorneys, but you do need.
They're there to protect you.
You do need legal representation for different things. I mean, an attorney is there to ensure that your contracts, your agreements, I mean, everything from your lease agreements, on property to your operating agreement.
Yeah, all your corporate documents.
All your corporate documents,
your bylaws,
everything.
Your shareholder agreements, all of that.
Everything Brian just mentioned. All your shareholder agreements, all your operating agreement, your lease agreements, everything should go through attorney legal review.
Because they know what to look for.
Yeah.
You don't know where the gotchas are. You just look for they're doing what I asked them to do. And then there's 30 other paragraphs where they're, every contract gives and takes. We always look at the give part. They look at the take part and go, hey, they're taking this, they're taking this, they're taking this. And again, a lot of it has to do with entrepreneurs' mindset is positive. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Everybody else looks at it from something is going to go wrong. And at that point, we're going to need some reconciliation or recourse. And that's where you get killed.
Yeah. And we're here to protect you. They're there to help you. They're like the parent you don't want to listen to. I'm going to do it my way. I know what I'm talking about. And they're sitting there like, no, we know you think you know what you're talking about, but we also know what could go wrong here. And we're going to tell you what's going to go wrong. And you have to listen to us. It slows things down. It gets expensive, or it could get expensive. I'm sorry. It could get expensive, but it's necessary because you got to make sure that your business is protected against liabilities. You need to be indemnified of certain things if something goes wrong. You need to make.
That's a big part of every contract. Like, you should really spend time with an attorney if you're serious about a business and the business is going to grow. There's some key points to every contract, and indemnification is a big one. And it's messy and it's ugly, but it comes up in every single negotiation. Who's responsible if? Who's liable if?
Yeah, and in the operating agreement and the shareholder agreements outline everything from who makes the decisions, how much equity control is needed to make decisions. I think we talked about this several podcasts back. Like, you asked me, Matt, well, how is it decided? Like, if you want to go open 5 new centers at Buyer Side, well, it's in the shareholder agreement. It's in the operating agreement. It says how many people need within our shareholders, our investors, how many people need to sign off on that. That's all outlined with in a very specific agreement that's got to be drafted by an attorney, and it's got to account for all the things that you don't think could happen are outlined in that agreement.
Well, even how the business unwinds at some point. If it unwinds gracefully or if it unwinds in a disaster, here's the things that happen. Here's
who gets paid, who doesn't get paid. If a member dies, what happens if a member dies? How does that play out? So there's so many things that are within these agreements that you wouldn't even think to draft in an agreement yourself. Even if you wanted to sketch out some just very, some very basic level agreement, you wanted to sketch something out, you're going to be missing something. You're forgetting about something that you didn't even think of. And even years down the road of being in multiple businesses, it's interesting how the attorneys still bring up things that I'm like, I didn't know that. Like, yeah, that's a new law that passed, and there's new laws that have passed.
Well, for you in healthcare, it's got to be crazy.
Yeah. So there's things that are constantly changing, and they are the subject matter experts on staying on top of those things. We work with I just want to mention, we work with a really good law firm called Golden Ratner. So shout out to Lindsay and David that are out there for helping us all these years.
Put them on the sponsor list?
But yeah, I don't know. You guys want to sponsor us, or are you going to bill me?
Don't
for...
answer that. Did you just ask him a question?
Oh, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm going to invoice shoots across. I'll get an invoice in the mail to our
Wait, I just got a text. $1,800.
No, actually, it's a.
Now, to be fair, we're not making fun of this. It is, though, a caution. Be aware that correspondents are going to cost.
Well, yeah, because they bill by 15-minute increments, 5-minute increments sometimes. It's a big expense, but it's because it's so important. It's like insurance almost. We're not talking about insurance agents today, but there's ensuring your business is protected. Definitely ensure that you are protected. There's things like if you're going to have a board of directors, if you're going to be on a board of directors, I get invited to be on different boards for companies. You have to have directors and officers insurance, because when somebody sues a company, they're going after the money. Where's the money? Usually it's not necessarily the founder with the money. It's the investor with the money, or, somebody else, or it's not the company with the money. It's the owner, or it's the investors. Those are the kind of things that attorneys help with. I mean, there's a ton of stuff. The other day I had lunch with one of our friends who wants to start a business on a product that they've come up with. And, fortunately, they're smart enough to realize I should probably get this patented before I go too far down the path and spend a lot of money on development and marketing. Like, absolutely. And there's, online patent services. But, I've been through the process once or twice, and there's a lot of things that an attorney can do in the process that you wouldn't think of. You just don't know it because you're not in it day to day. For instance, they have conversations with the patent office on a regular basis. So after your thing gets submitted, it doesn't just sit in a pile. They can call Jenny and go, hey, Jenny, I submitted a patent for, such and such. When do you think you'd be able to get to it? Or, let me know if there's issues.
Another example where my daughter, when their company starting to put products out there, we were talking about trademarks,
licensing and copyright.
licensing, all of that, and she just wanted some general guidance on some stuff. And I said, well, listen, I work with a great law firm. They'll hop on the phone. Let's go ask them these questions. Let's keep our questions limited. Right. Because you get it as, that's interesting. Wow. Okay. And then you start talking. So the clock's just running. And again, with all due respect to all the law firms that are out there, the idea is here, we're on the phone for 45 minutes and we got, probably 3 or 4 of our key questions answered, which we needed to, but it required explanation. And then, 2 weeks later, I got a bill for $400, or she had a bill for $400 because of the time spent on the call for an hour, spending time going through all this. And it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this costs this much. It's like, yes. So before you engage an attorney, think through.
Do your research.
What do you really need to find out from the attorney that you literally can't find out yourself? Don't get on the phone and talk about. If you just go in blind, you're going to walk out with no money. You have to do your research, know what you're asking, be specific. I mean, if you need to ask an open-ended question, talk budget ahead of time and say, hey, look, I can't spend more than an hour on this, but I could use your advice on this general topic. But do as much research as you can up front.
Good question. You mentioned LegalZoom a lot. So when does LegalZoom end? Because I would have thought a patent, maybe LegalZoom. When does LegalZoom end? And no, you need to get an attorney.
Think of LegalZoom as like there's some just cookie cutter things that they can provide. An LLC filing with the state or establishing an LLC, filing the LLC with the state and giving you a very, very basic cookie cutter operating agreement. It gives you that for a few $100. But if you want to go into customization of the operating agreement, which again, if your agreement's if your company is very small and providing very simple a product or a service, it's very simple. You may not need more than that. But as you start to introduce more members, you start to introduce more complexity to your business. You're operating in different states or different people are involved, different products and services, then and there's different equity. You have more equity or less equity than other people, and you have different responsibilities in this. That's when the LegalZoom, the basic cookie cutter format of a few $100, it gets you started. But once you start then getting beyond that, you do need to engage an attorney.
I will say one other thing about working with attorneys that I think is important. This may be more corporate, as the company gets bigger, but they're there to help you minimize risk and liability. And as much as you think of the law as black and white, it's not. There's a lot of gray areas. Everything goes to court to be interpreted. Mm-hmm. So an ideal relationship with an attorney is they spell out the risks for you. Like, here's the risks in what you're doing and what's in this contract. And then you as the business leader or decision maker has to weigh, am I willing to take that risk or not? If you get an attorney who just always says, no, don't do this, that's not a healthy relationship.
That's right.
It's, why shouldn't I do this? What's the impact? What's the potential damage? Because I got to make a decision for my business. This is a potential huge revenue grower. And you're telling me not to do it because of some namby-pamby little, nitty thing that may never come up.
Did you say namby-pamby?
Namby-pamby. That's a business term.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with that.
It's Latin. I think it's Latin.
It's Latin. Yeah. Really? Okay.
For
I took 2 years of Latin. Look at that. I actually remembered something.
No, that's
now
not.
You're saying it's not.
No, namby-pamby.
That's an elementary, kindergarten, playground fighting term.
I was thinking I got something out of my Latin class.
I'm surprised with lawyers all the time. Like, hippity-dippity scotch.
Well, lawyers talk Latin. I mean, a lot of law is written in Latin, so it could have been. I'm going to look it up after the show.
Where you're going with it, though, is spot on. A good attorney doesn't tell you no. A good attorney tells you, here's what your exposure is. This is where liability can occur. Here's some solutions for you. Here's some things to think about. And then you ultimately have to make a business decision. Does the business upside outweigh the downside risk or liability. And that's a lot of times getting back to the conversations around leadership. I mean, that happens a lot in the course of business decisions where you say, I got to make a decision as the leader of the company. Is this exposure, the problem here, worth less or more than the business opportunity or benefit? And you look at that and you weigh it out. And like Brian said, it could be 50-50, but sometimes it weighs in favor. Say, this opportunity is too great for us. We have to forego the risk and we have to do this, or vice versa. The risk is too great. We can't take this risk for that kind of gain. And those are the types of decisions that develop when you are being presented with these types of situations from your accountants, from your attorneys, from your bankers, because they'll tell you that sort of thing. And that's when you got to make those decisions.
Right.
Are attorneys like CPAs and accountants where they are also susceptible to, as you grow, you may need to change? Or are they a little like, no, lawyers know the law pretty well?
Change or specialize. Like when Brad said, hey, let's talk to my lawyer about licensing. Like a bigger law firm is going to have somebody who specializes in licensing,
in trademarks, in patents, a patent attorney, a trademark attorney.
Those are different specialties, but you may go to a smaller law firm and they're like, yeah, Tim knows about patents, copyrights, trademarks. You go to a bigger firm, they're going to go, well, we have a department for that. Let's connect you with the head of the licensing department. So it's all how
and
important
you have those tools
at your
so if you're with the larger firm, you have those tools like, we can switch departments, no problem. We can pull whoever we need into.
Yeah, and that's a matter of how important is it to your business. If it's just if licensing is just a minor thing, then maybe your attorney who's got some exposure to it can give you some advice. If it's critical to your business, where that's like 90% of your revenue, then you want to work with a law firm, either a law firm or a department in a law firm that specializes in licensing.
I remember thinking back on stories from an earlier podcast when I was talking about the Mark Cuban interaction. I'm not going to go into the full dialogue, but I will tell you that his legal team is like a step above any law firm that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, they are like advanced level, top notch. Like these guys know everything about anything about everything. And I'm not saying that our law firm, as I mentioned, Golden Ratner is not a fantastic firm, but just think about it. The guy owns 170 different companies and how they're interacting and interfacing, and they're in multiple states, multiple countries, and the things they deal with it was mind-boggling, the things that they were bringing up, like, hey, these are the types of things we got to look out for. And we all were like, okay, wow. I mean, there was a lot to learn in that discussion. Of course, their rates, I'm sure, which came through in the overall discussion as well, were way up there as well, because that subject matter expertise in a certain field is, you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it.
So, and the market dictates that, right? I mean, they can do that because that's what people, as you go higher up, they're going to do those higher rates. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, for some part. Like I saw a special the other day, this class action lawsuits against the Sackler family, the ones who invented
Dope Sick was
Oxycontin and stuff. Those attorneys are making $2,500 an hour, like because the payoff's going to be huge. Right. So people are willing to pay it. I mean, the more specialized they are, the more they're going to charge per hour, because that knowledge is power. So
once again, our conversation just flies by. I don't know if we want to get into banking. That might be its own episode, because I know there's a lot. Let's save the bees for
banking and insurance. Probably is another conversation, but it just goes to show you. I mean, like
HR professionals.
I mean, we just talked about accountants and attorneys. I mean, for literally just 50 minutes or so, and I mean, I can continue to talk about attorneys. The great things that they offer, the horror stories, how they bill, things that you should be considered. But I mean, two important partners of kind of a multi-prong approach when you're starting a business or growing a business that you need to consider. So I think it's a good place to stop. You talk about your accountants and your attorneys in one vein, and then we can talk about banking and insurance and other partners in another episode.
We can throw in like a couple last things on attorneys just to wrap it.
I don't charge by the minute, so you talk as long as you want. You go, you're fine. I'm not gonna.
Well, we spend a lot of time talking about how they protect you from risk and liabilities, but they can also be a huge asset in and kind of a weapon for growth. I mean, because they're generally smart people that are involved in a lot of businesses. So I've had attorneys who've suggested how to structure a deal that winds up being way more profitable or way more growth for us than what we had in mind. Because they saw it somewhere else. They're like, if you just position this way, or you structure the deal this way, or you structure the acquisition this way, or the divestiture of this asset this way, you can make a lot more money. So the right attorney can really help you grow the business. Also, things like lawsuits. Like some point we'll talk about VHT sued Zillow. The big.
That's a great. We should talk about that podcast. Yeah, that was a high profile lawsuit that a lot of people don't know. That VHT Studios took on Zillow, the giant, and you could give probably a whole podcast on that experience because the whole transaction was 7 years, 6 years?
8 years,
8-year lawsuit.
Set a lot of precedents around copyright and licensing, and we had a great team, And
so obviously, just not to spoil the ending, you didn't. We won. You won.
We won. They were infringing on the copyrights. They were using our photographs for purposes that we hadn't provided a license for, and so it went, through the federal courts, appeals courts. There was some appeals to the Supreme Court. Never heard by the Supreme Court, but the issue itself is still floating out in the industry. But we won the lawsuit, and
that was a high, and we really kind of downplay it. That was a high profile case.
It is a whole,
that my brother was responsible for driving the lawsuit against Zillow, and so I think, man, that's one full podcast.
We'll talk about it,
and
because
that's
I think
infringement. They're just basically
that
taking
one was,
but
I think it fits into this podcast well because it's kind of a small guy in a mom and pop industry.
Trying to take out the
big guy,
corporate behemoth.
Because the big guy's like, well, who's ever going to sue us? Like, it's just a bunch of mom and pop small entrepreneurs. They could never sue us. We were fortunate enough that we figured out a way to do it. And so within our industry, we got a lot of respect, even from our competitors. Like, okay, we were all being, hosed by this.
Relevant to this conversation today, did you have to upgrade your attorneys for a fight that big, or you stuck?
We used a whole different law firm.
You did. That's what I mean. You did. You went.
Yeah. Who's specialized in litigation for copyright infringement, and there was a whole team put together. I learned a lot. And
you could tell us a lot about the cuisine and libations out in the great city of Seattle, Washington, where you spent 6 months or years of your life.
I'll wind up scratching that one off our potential sponsors list.
Lobster by any chance? I think it comes back to.
I might.
But he spent a lot of time in Seattle. He had to be out there for that lawsuit.
The biggest thing I learned from our head litigator, Marcia, who was a pistol, was, Brian, it doesn't work like you see it on TV. She told me that about 100 times.
Judy said,
or Judge it's more boring. It's not as exciting.
The People's Court says this. All right, Brian, that's not how this works. But no, that's really good.
Yeah, my brother's a police officer in Barrington, and he was on a murder case. And I remember going to that trial, and I'm like, this is really slow.
It's like, I want answers right now.
No one's getting up and yelling at the judge. They're just sitting there answering the questions. I'm like, shouldn't you be pacing?
This is nothing like
no,
LA
they actually
law.
Stay in their seats.
Shouldn't you be pacing?
No, they get up to a podium and that's it. They're not doing all that.
I forgot all about it. It's so funny. An 8-year lawsuit. I forgot about that. Yeah. How time flies when you're having fun.
We're talking attorneys, and at the very end, we're like, right.
And by the way,
you sued Zillow.
Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun, but maybe that'll be one of the next.
Well, you're gonna have to subscribe to our podcast.
It's free.
Make sure it's free. The subscription's free. You just hit that subscribe button, so you can get all of our episodes.
Cost of zero.
Unlike, you can watch as many. You don't get a bill from us.
That's not a free trial. This is free.
Yeah, there's no free trial.
You don't get a bill in the mail saying you listened to an hour and a half, you owe us $400. No.
But by the way, for our new viewers out in the UK, welcome. I saw that there's some viewers out in the UK, Australia, and Canada. So welcome aboard. Please send us a message out there. Tell us how it is on the other side of the pond.
Put our episodes in the queue to watch.
Oh, that's new.
Yeah. Well, it's English. It's a
see.
line in the line. Yeah, I'm trying to go.
It's Latin.
Yeah.
Put it in the boot of your car. Do you know what that is? That's
Yeah,
a
the
trunk.
trunk.
That's a trunk.
Okay,
very good.
Oh,
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No, I thought a boot. Like, let me tell you, a boot. This
It's in
process.
the boot of your car. The boot of your
Okay.
car. So
Now I know. I learned something today.
Well,
I'll
with that
do
being
the
said,
after show. I learned something.
hate to say it, guys, but my drink's empty, so this
Yeah.
session's over.
This session's over. See you next time.
All right, see ya.
Thanks for joining
Take it
us.
easy. Bye.
Thanks.